All right. So for those of you that have just joined us, like I said, this is the last part of a 5-part series, and we have Smithson Mills from Blue Ridge Food Ventures and Michael McDonald from Blue Ridge Food Ventures and Laura Lawfer from the Empowering Mountain Food Systems project in the western part of North Carolina. So thank you, team, for making this series happen. I think it's been really helpful and beneficial for those that have been joining us. And Smithson, I am going to go ahead and turn this over to you.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany, and thank you also for being a fantastic coordinator for this and managing the technology of Zoom. This is something that, it's hard to believe that 3 months ago or so, I didn't even know what Zoom was. So now I live with it
so well.
Yeah, now I know it. So I'm still learning new things. But I really want to thank you for making this as smooth as it can possibly be. And I want to thank all the participants for continuing to tune in. And I hope that this series has been useful to you as you prepare your food business, try to grow your food business, or try to figure out what's coming next. And that's really the main purpose of today's meeting. This is, we developed this series late last year for live in-person presentations. And then when COVID hit, Laura Lawfer had the suggestion that we attempt to do this via online. And I'm glad to say we've been able to convert better than I feared that we might. And the one kicker that we needed to do was to create a presentation for what we're going through right now in COVID and what I call COVID land. This is absolutely unprecedented. As you all know, we're living through a very historical time. I'm encouraging my children, my adult children, to keep journals, write down what's going on, because 5 years, 10 years from now, people are going to look back and say, whoa, what was that? So there are going to be a lot of PhDs from history to biology earned from COVID. And we're part of that. So we're going to go into this series of slides, and I thought about how I could best present what's going on right now. And really the best way I can present is to go back to the news, because it's too early for any type of scholarly journals or economic business analysis is just now starting to trickle in. It's just sort of like in the middle of a tsunami. It's very hard to measure how deep the water is. So here we are. In the food world, it's really interesting because while some sectors of America, say the airline industry, has just pretty much uniformly gone kerplunk, the food industry is very different. We have different sectors of the food industry and different effects from COVID, and some of those have been amazingly resilient, while others have been proven to be very, very weak in the face of this challenge. Basically, we're looking at two very large subsectors of the food industry. The first is food eaten away from home. These typically include restaurants and food trucks and special event foods. There are others where people might go into a bodega or a small shop to buy food to walk away with. But this is a trend. Up until this year, the amount of food dollars spent on food eaten away from home has increased year after year after year, as far back as I know. I believe in 2012 or so, the amount of food dollars eaten away from home, spent away from home, surpassed the amount of food dollars spent for food consumed at home. That absolutely reversed in about March of this year. And food eaten at home became much, much more important and a bigger part of the economic pie than it had been for a long, long time. So food eaten at home is bought from supermarkets, delivered to the home, picked up from restaurants, and food, I don't know why I put food eaten away from home. That's a typo. Sorry about that. But picked up from restaurants, delivered to home, or bought from supermarkets, also ordered online. And I want to get back into that a little bit more about how important online presences are now for anybody who's in the food business. Restaurants, we're having really historic job losses. If you look at this chart, really tells the story. we fell off a cliff. Millions and millions of people lost their jobs. We have the fewest jobs in the eating and drinking places since May of 1989. And think about population growth and all of that factored in. As a percentage of the overall workforce, the restaurant trade is contributing fewer jobs than probably it has in many, many decades. In April, restaurant and bar industry lost 5.5 million jobs. I almost put in a slide that showed that in March, they lost about 500,000 jobs, and that was the largest number of jobs ever lost in the restaurant trade since records have been kept. And that was magnified tenfold in April. Now, are these jobs going to be gone forever? Some will not. And we're still in play right now to know what's going to happen. But I think it's safe to say the restaurants as an industry will not recover to 2019 levels for many, many years. And the reason for that is in this headline. There's a strong causal link between restaurant spending and new cases of coronavirus. As long as there is coronavirus in our communities, eating in restaurants is going to continue to be a risky activity. An analysis of 30 million Chase card holders showed that higher restaurant spending in a state predicts a rise in new infections 3 weeks later. In-person restaurant spending is, quote, particularly predictive. Conversely, higher spending at supermarkets predicts a slower spread of the virus. This is pretty solid data that's coming in now. So until these facts are no longer relevant, this is going to be the continued situation. And again, restaurant industry continues a slow recovery as states reopen. And this is probably a month old right here. Summer, we had hoped probably about 6 weeks ago. I was reading articles that said, well, things could get back to normal by June or July. I don't see any reason to believe that to be the case. Summer employment is going to be very low. A lot of teenagers aren't going to have jobs. A lot of people home from school, from colleges aren't going to have jobs. So it's going to be a difficult time for everybody right now. And operators do not anticipate a rapid improvement in their business. Another sector of the eating away from home industry that is being hurt is wedding caterers. And we've got a number of caterers that are working, food trucks and caterers at Blue Ridge Food Ventures. Mike, maybe you could talk a little bit about what you've seen as an impact to some of our clients in this category.
Sure. I mean, obviously, weddings, events, large gatherings of people are going to be prohibitive, just from a state mandate point of view, but also from people's willingness to gather. So you're seeing a lot of slowdowns, not only in the already established events that are getting canceled, but also a slowdown in those tasting events that caterers do to prepare for future events. So there's a lot of certainty right now that people are canceling. There's a lot of uncertainty right now of when people are going to start having these types of large events in the future. So we've seen definitely that our caterers have experienced a very severe drop-off in business and income. And gosh, we sure hope they make it. I think probably what you're going to see in future events for wedding catering, and this is just a guess, but I would guess that you're going to see an increase in boxed lunch or boxed dinner style things, grab and go, prepackaged items. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of buffet style events in terms of food service when you're talking about weddings, catering, other events of those kind of sizes.
Right. And so what you're saying is that, and what I'm reading also is that, people are not going to stop getting married. This is, it's, it's almost as much of a biological necessity as food itself. People create unions and create more humans. And that's not going to stop. And people will continue to celebrate those unions. But there's going to be one article I read said that all of the weddings that were canceled in the spring, the vast majority of them have not been canceled. They have been delayed. Right. Now, some of them might give opportunities for people to reconsider their commitments, but really, I think there's a lot of people that expect there to be a massive surge in weddings once people feel like the coast is somewhat clear. The nature of those weddings may be different. Instead of 300 plate dinners, you might be having 50 plate dinners. And then those dinners may be brought in box form so that people can't have that cross contamination.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, personal finances of the general public are deteriorating. People who describe their personal finances as excellent or good have dropped by a little bit. On average, I would say less than 10%, but this was a survey that was done in April. So I think if you go back and ask people if their personal finances are excellent or good today, it's going to be substantially lower than that April level as well. While we do have record unemployment, it's important to remember that a lot of that unemployment is induced unemployment, in that while we have sort of a schizophrenic body politic, I think there is a certain line of thought that the more people who stay home, the better off we're all going to be. And paying people that federal unemployment rate of $600 per week gives them an incentive to stay home and stay safe. So some of this unemployment is, like I say, induced. Some of it is absolutely real because businesses have dried up. Pivoting back to the food at home, while the restaurant industry has been devastated, the grocery industry has boomed. If you go and look at the stock market and you look at people like Walmart and Kroger and Ingles, their stocks are way, way up. Also up is Amazon. Amazon basically expanded its food industry footprint by about what I think they were projecting this to be about a 10-year increase to 2030. They got to 2030 anticipated levels in 4 months' time, overloaded. But nevertheless, that is a trend that is probably not going to go in reverse. There might be people who pivot back to going into stores, but the number of people who buy online is not going to be less than it was in January of 2020, probably ever again, because human beings are creatures of habit. And once people change their habit, they tend to continue with those changed behaviors rather than reverting to what had been the norm. Albertsons Organics went public in the middle of all of this. $800 million IPO. This is most IPOs, corporate IPOs have been put on hold this year because no one believes that they can get the value they think their companies are worth. But Albertsons, on the other hand, went ahead with it and had a successful IPO, although their valuation went down a little bit because of COVID, but I still don't really understand why. Ingles is paying worker bonuses for people who are coming into work, which is great, that people can make that living. I think it's also important, and what I didn't mention is that the food industry is considered to be an essential sector of the economy. The restaurant industry, not so much, but the food retail businesses are, while not mandated to remain open, they are encouraged very much to remain open. I've also heard that there are best practices being shared between supermarket competitors that normally would not have been even allowed under federal trade law, but now Ingles and Publix and Kroger can put their heads together and say, how are you handling your employees right now? What's your policies that are keeping people safe, healthy, and employed? That type of sharing is facilitating innovation in the supermarket industry that may not have happened without COVID-19. Caterers are now moving towards online for offering. This was an interesting article. Online catering marketplace debuts COVID smart services. So basically people can have their meals, like if you see, this is not going to be a buffet type meal. This is going to be a meal in a box that's going to be provided to people so that workplaces can order their goods for their people. Sorry, I'm going back and forth here. Also, local catering businesses are moving more to delivery services. Food trucks are doing delivery to neighborhoods and to individual homes now, whereas they used to go to places where people gathered outside of the home. So while the revenue for a small catering business may have declined substantially, by pivoting to this, you can still stay in business and keep some people employed. Another food truck getting creative, moving to selling groceries and pivoting to delivery. This is a feature on one caterer in Nashville and another one in Greenville, South Carolina, trying different strategies. And for those of you who are looking for ideas on how to cope with this, really a Google search under news is a good way. You can start to identify people who are doing creative and innovative things, and maybe you can apply some of those lessons to your own business. Meanwhile, the meat industry is suffering tremendously for a completely different reason. They have COVID rife through the processing plants. And this is shining a very bright light on the status of the meat industry and processing in the meat industry. There are certain inequities and certain practices that the meat industry has resisted for decades. From both sort of a labor rights standpoint as well as best economic practices standpoint. Companies like Tyson and Purdue are going to have to get with the program on increasing worker safety, or else their bottom lines are going to be impacted negatively. So we're going to start to see some positive improvements in the well-being of workers in meat plants, not because Don Tyson's relatives have great big hearts, but because they want to keep making that money. It's a powerful motivator. My dad said that the most sensitive nerve in the human body is the pocketbook nerve. So while the meat industry is suffering and the supply of meat is tight and the price of meat has skyrocketed, Impossible Foods has begun selling its meatless sausage to restaurants nationwide. The plant-based meat industry is surging, again, sort of similar to Amazon accelerating its food sales, 10 years worth of food sales in 3 months. The shift from animal-based meats to plant-based proteins has accelerated tremendously during this time. This is a trend that will not be reversed. There might be people, once hamburger comes back down to $4 a pound, people will go back and buy some hamburger, but they're not going to stop necessarily buying the Impossible Foods version just because hamburger's now cheap again, if that makes any sense. And I'm sad to say, it ain't over, folks. This is a headline from today. Reopening grinds to a halt as coronavirus hospitalizations surge in Sunbelt states. A lot of people really wanted this thing to be over by now, but wanting and hoping doesn't make things happen. And the fact of the matter is, we kind of screwed the pooch on this one. We could have taken certain actions in February, March, and early April that could have flattened this to a point where we'll be in a much more manageable situation. But because of various reasons, probably the Southeast has not even begun this isn't round two, it's really round one still for us. Now you're starting to see some impacts in Washington State and Oregon and California that I think you could safely say are sort of a round two of COVID, but we're still in the first big wave right now, and it's rising. So unfortunate news, but facts are facts. So I know everybody's really cheered up at this point. Takeaways. Uncertainty will be the norm for at least the remainder of the year. Anybody who tells you they know what September is going to be like is either delusional or lying. I predict that COVID will not be tamed before spring of 2021. This is a prediction, not a guarantee, but all indications are that until we have a vaccine and certain behavioral practices are implemented throughout society, it's still going to be dangerous to eat in a restaurant. And that's going to make food dollars be spent in the ways that I've just explained. Food dollars will be spent on home food, and that consumption will remain elevated for quite a while. It's interesting, I was reading an article about 3 months ago that said, well, you know, the supermarkets are going to have a big rush in food purchases over the next month and a half, and then everybody's going to be sick of eating in supermarket food, and they're going to pivot away from that. That's also not happening. I think that if you wanted to have a safe place to put your money for the next 6 to 8 months, I'd probably buy Kroger stock. It might go up, it might go down, but people are going to continue to be eating in food from grocery stores at a higher level than before for quite a long time. Restaurant traffic, meanwhile, will continue to be slow. Does not mean it will be non-existent. There will be a slight uptick, I predict, in restaurant food dollars spent, but mostly for takeout and home consumption. A lot of the Asheville area restaurants have opened just for pickup, and some of them are having limited seating, but they're starting to figure out that people will pay, you know, $60 or $70 for a family of 4 to eat a really good meal every once in a while. I mean, my family's now doing pickup and takeout maybe once a week, so we're probably dropping $50 to $60 on one meal per week. The rest of the meals are all coming from the supermarket. And guess what? We're spending a lot less money on food than we were last year. And we have a little bit money left in the bank because of that. So a lot of people are going to see that and say, golly, you know, I can cook at home and make a fantastic meal that would cost my family $100 if we ate out. So a lot of people are learning how to make food at home. And that's a positive trend for a lot of different reasons. Also, catering and events-based foods will continue to suffer. Sorry, I thought I was at my last bullet there. The growth areas that I would keep an eye on: home delivery of fresh foods. HelloFresh is knocking it out of the park. I was talking to some friends of mine in Boone the other day, and they've signed up for HelloFresh and they love it, and they're committed to purchasing. And this is where you get all of the ingredients for a first-rate meal and the instructions on how to prepare that meal at home. And these folks are really, really enjoying that. Another area that I would look at carefully is home ingredient supplies for advanced cooks. Okay, people are looking for gourmet things. I mean, you know, my daughter is like calling me up and go, "Hey, Dad, where can I get lemongrass?" You know, I never thought my daughter would want to know where to get lemongrass before, but there she is. My son is living in Chapel Hill with some friends. They're learning how to cook. They can't go to restaurants to eat. They can't afford to go to restaurants to eat, and they're finally learning how to cook for themselves. So good luck to those 19-year-old boys. Functional foods for health, the retail trade. That is something that people are looking for, things that are going to boost immunity or keep them healthy in this time. I mean, every time I get a sneeze, I think, oh, there we go. Got it now. And fact of the matter is people are paying a lot more attention to their bodies and their health because they're scared. Another trend that's going to continue to grow, and I've already mentioned this, is alternative proteins at the retail trade. There's not going to be a reversal of this trend. Hot meals delivered to homes. Again, I just mentioned that. That catered hot meal, DoorDash, things like that are going to continue to boom. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of dollars spent there. Natural remedies and nutritional supplements. We're seeing this with some of our clients at Blue Ridge Food Ventures. People immediately started rushing towards herbal products and nutritional supplements when COVID started coming down the line because they wanted to boost their immunity. I think there's some debate as to whether or not certain foods can create an immunity situation for you in regards to COVID. But there's a lot out there that has yet to be parsed as to whether it's factual or not. And so people are trying a little bit of everything to see if they can pin down a way to stay healthy. Permanent changes. And again, these are, sort of my point of view, and I could be wrong, and I'll freely admit that these are speculations. But I'm pretty sure that more food is going to be bought online. It's going to be pre-ordered for pickup. Catered foods will be delivered by services, and grocery items will be delivered by Amazon or others. I'm kind of surprised that Ingles hasn't rolled out a home delivery service yet, but they do have, I think they do have ordering from home, and you can go to pick up. But we're just a few steps away from our mainline supermarkets starting to do delivery to your door. Many restaurants and caterers will exit. Some will pivot, but many will simply fold. Again, it's because the amount of food dollars spent away from home has decreased dramatically, and it will stay depressed for a long time. So the restaurant industry as it existed in December of 2019 was designed for the amount of dollars spent in December of 2019. And so it's going to have to contract because there just won't be enough dollars out there to support the number of businesses that are in this line of trade. So just keep an eye out. More people know how to cook. This is something I've seen. Again, I've mentioned this already, but it is really amazing to see how many millennials are out there learning how to cook food for themselves. To a degree that, I came of age in the 80s, and I don't think I really learned how to cook well until I was married when I was 26. But my son, by the time he's 26, he'll probably be a gourmet chef. So, this is all good. Also, booms will happen not only in the food, but the supplies, cooking utensils, pots and pans, hot pads, all sorts of things. Did I hear a beep for a reason, Tiffany?
Well, I was just going to say we got a couple of questions, and
it's a good time to let me do this one more slide, and then we'll pivot to all that. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, one more slide. I just want to let you know this is all guesswork. One thing to think about in the sector, in the region where we live, tourism and its growth or stagnation will affect W&C food businesses. I'm not prepared to say whether tourism is going to go up or down in the midterm basis, because a lot of people, we saw this in 2008, people who had planned very expensive, elaborate trips that involved getting on airplanes canceled those trips and decided to drive for their vacations. And Western North Carolina is uniquely positioned to host drive-in tourism trade. So a lot of people from Atlanta, Charlotte, Knoxville, Raleigh, Durham area, wherever in the Southeast are going to say, hey, we could just drive straight up to the Smoky Mountains and enjoy ourselves. From what I'm hearing, the trend towards visiting national parks is going to accelerate quite a bit because people want to be outside. They want to be socially distanced from others. This isn't a guess. People will continue to eat. As long as there are people, they will continue to eat. Therefore, there will continue to be a food industry. It will just morph into different permutations. And finally, I really want to stress this. Everyone sees things their own way. I'm giving you my opinions, but you may see things that I don't see. You may know things that I don't know. So keep a close eye on where you are and what the opportunities are for you, because every single client that we've dealt with at Blue Ridge Food Ventures has a slightly different story about how they're being affected or adapting to the new reality that we live in. And Tiffany, I'm ready for questions.
Okay, so one of the questions was, how are the plant-based meats getting the blood to make their products?
There's no blood. It's just, meat is a bit of a euphemism. It's just like there's, almond milk is not real milk, but people commonly refer to it as almond milk. Although in Europe it can't be called almond milk because the dairy industry has opposed the use of the word.
Smithson, aren't they using beets to mimic the blood?
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Yeah.
Okay,
the
I'm very
ingredients
sorry.
the ingredients that they're using to mimic that are usually beet-based because of the strong red dye there, to mimic not the blood, because there's really not blood in your meat. That's all hemoglobin that you're seeing that people think is blood, but they're using beet products to mimic.
Right. There is a lot of controversy around the use of the word plant-based meats, just as there's controversy around the use of the word almond milk. The dairy industry doesn't like almond milk, and the animal meat industry doesn't like the word plant-based meats. There has been discussion about mandating laws about what can be called meat, what can't be called meat. That's getting a little Orwellian for me. When governments start to dictate how language can be used, that's a pretty strong sign that something is amiss, in my opinion.
All right, next question is, what about imported food, foreign, as Italian, for example?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was being impacted before COVID because of the numerous trade wars that have been launched over the past 3 years. There's been a lot of tariffs have come into food products. Tit for tat trade barriers have gone up. The animal meat industry relied heavily on exports for many, many years, and a lot of that has dried up because of trade disputes. Those of you who might want to import from Italy or elsewhere, just really check carefully on the tariff schedules and how they're being rolled out, whether things have changed. Because from what I'm hearing, you could have one product that has a 5% tariff one day, and then the next day it's a 30% tariff, according to who's mad at who. I don't know that COVID has had as much of an impact on imported foods as much as the trade policies of the Trump administration have had an impact on the importation of foods.
One place you might see an increase in imported foods would be, as you were talking about, these home cooks who are trying out new things and are learning and want to try all this neat, fun stuff. Maybe they're watching Food Network programs and they want to try these interesting exotic recipes. You might see an increase in home cooks purchasing those sorts of products online.
Yeah, gourmet supplies of home use foods could really be taking off right now. And so if you were importing, again, I think a couple of sessions ago, I showed you giant bags of rice, 50-pound bags of rice that were probably purchased for $10 a bag, repackaged into 25-ounce containers of sushi rice that were being sold for $4 a box. So that is a real possibility of bulk purchases of gourmet imported foods repackaged for distribution to the home consumer might be a pretty good business idea. So we'd love to have more questions if you have them. And I apologize for this being a little bit random because, I mean, we're like I said, we're in the middle of an historical crisis and we're trying to make sense of it in the middle of it. So hopefully we'll look back at this presentation, a year from now and say, gosh, that wasn't too far off the mark. Hopefully in some cases, I hope I'm dead wrong and that the restaurant industry is back and booming and this is just a bad memory. So we'll hold out some hope and maybe there'll be a vaccine and we can just put this all behind us.
Yeah, the following up on the let's see, the beets, it says one of the attendees says they're made with calf's blood according to some articles, but I think that was also before y'all mentioned the beets too. So
I would be highly suspicious of any article that implied a plant-based meat was being made with calf's blood.
all right, so what other questions do you guys have for Smithson? We can also go ahead and turn it over to Laura, and then if there's any follow-up questions at the end of that, maybe.
So I'm going to stop share now.
Okay.
And then, there we go.
Okay, everybody. Good morning. My name is Laura Lawfer. I'm the project director for Empowering Mountain Food Systems. Are y'all seeing my PowerPoint screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay, cool. So Empowering Mountain Food Systems, we're based in the 7 southwestern North Carolina counties of Graham, Clay, Swain, Jackson. I'll show you that on the next slide, but I do want to emphasize that we have support from the Appalachian Regional Commission, North Carolina Cooperative Extension, and the Cherokee Preservation Foundation. So we are focused here in these little corner of North Carolina, our corner of the mountains, and our goal is to improve regional food system through education, entrepreneurship, and infrastructure. This is only a regional focus, and ideally we're increasing farm and food business income. And since COVID, we've added the term resiliency. Before we were really focusing on this income piece, but we recognize, and our funder recognizes, that we really do need to help make some investments in a resilient food system. So that's enabled us to shift some of our focus. So I wanted to add this slide to how we at Empowering Mountain Food Systems are seeing shifts, and it mimics many of the things that Smithson was saying. So these are the, pivot is the word of the day in COVID, right? So the pivots that we're seeing in the field, farmers markets are still very active. We have 7 farmers markets in the region that we are supporting by supplying PPE and cones and tape and signage to help farmers markets be more safe, make consumers feel safe, make sure vendors are safe. But some of the things that farmers markets are doing, they're having completely no-touch programs. There's a farmers market in Nashville where you drive through and you pick up your order and you have ordered ahead. We're not doing that out here, but it is happening. In Highlands and Cashiers, there's a mandatory mask policy that the vendors must wear masks or they're not allowed to vend. That's so far it's the recommendation language is still happening. we are advocating mandatory mask use by both vendors and shoppers. Social distancing is challenging at the farmers market, but as we've all seen, for folks who are going out shopping, you know, we are like putting X's on the ground and marking, you know, what is 6 feet apart. So the farmers markets are really, you know, making some changes to still stay valid. And I do think consumers appreciate farmers market experience. You know, it's outdoors. People do seem to feel safer shopping outdoors, and you know, it's not as confined. The challenge with farmers markets is that it is so social. It's such a social experience. People are sad. They miss seeing their friends. They want to hang out. And so that's tough. It's tough for the vendors and the farmers market managers to quote unquote control that. So aggregators, one of the things that we're seeing that's a really innovative pivot is aggregators are increasing sales through home deliveries. They are gathering produce and milk and cheese and even flowers, and they're becoming these modified CSAs. So we've even had a restaurant that the restaurant in the region closed altogether, and overnight started an online ordering process and aggregating from dozens of different vendors from around the region. And as Smithson was saying, you know, many vendors have completely lost their high-end restaurant sales. And so they are, you know, doing tailgate markets. They're taking what they would have sold to the high-end restaurant, putting it in a cooler, and literally opening their tailgate and trying to sell it on the side of the road. So that's a kind of unique pivot that's happening. Farmers are adding online sales. The Cooperative Extension has done some helpful webinars on, you know, how, if you use Square at your farmer's market, Square has the service to add online sales for your platform. That's one of the easier ones we've heard about. But there are many online sales platforms that folks are adding. Some farmers are having a farm pickup program. Come to the farm, your box will be out on the porch with your name on it. And then also home delivery options. As well, you know, this tailgate idea, folks are opening their tailgate and saying, you know, order ahead, come pick up your box. One of the things that this project is working on is agritourism. So of course, agritourism is way down. I really appreciate what Smithson was saying, that, you know, maybe folks, you know, won't take that trip to Portugal and will, you know, instead come out here and rent an Airbnb and hang out. But our agritourism vendors are really going to have to pivot around the social distancing and safety. Home gardening, the same thing as cooking, I think, is the home gardening movement. So many people have put in gardens. I understood that one of our favorite seed companies in the sustainable ag world, Johnny's, stopped consumer sales, and because the consumer sales were impacting how many seeds they had to sell to their long-term farmer clients. So, you know, this, again, you know, this one of the COVID things, how we as individuals are pivoting and coping is through cooking and home gardening. So some of the folks that we're working with at the farmers market are increasing their propagation of herbs and garden vegetable plants. And then the last thing that's happening out here that's really interesting is restaurants or grocers. So one of the cafes that I frequent weekly is, as Smithson said, I do takeout once a week, is Guadalupe Cafe. And they also, you can buy goat cheese, goat meat, coffee, chocolate, bread. So, you know, a lot of folks who are nervous about going out, if they're going to go out and pick up their to-go order, and they see the opportunity that, oh, I can go ahead and load up on bread and coffee here. I don't have to go through the gauntlet of the Ingalls. And so that's been really interesting. And then also echoing the idea of the home delivery of complete meals. One of the restaurants here in Silva, City Lights, that closed completely, are now doing these large family-sized meals, your meatloaf and potatoes and veg and dessert. They will deliver to you, to your family. So while people are cooking more, I'm sure some folks are getting tired of this 3 meals a day for these people that they're not used to having to spend a lot of time with. So that, I have other slides about our project, but this was our Empowering Mountains Food Systems COVID-19 update. Tiffany, were there any questions in the chat about these trends that we're seeing out here?
No, I don't see any questions right now.
Okay, then I'm going to go on explaining our project and what we're up to. So one of the things that we're doing is our funder, the Appalachian Regional Commission, allowed us to change some of our budgeting to meet the changing food landscape, our food systems landscape. So we now have 2 different application processes, one for aggregators. So those are the folks who are now sourcing products from diverse farming operations and redistributing it. And then farmer specific. So for the aggregators, the things that we're funding, we have a contract with Blue Ridge Restaurant Supply, and they've been amazing. And folks are going in there and they're talking to them about, what is the best product for me? Do I buy new? Do I buy used? What makes the most sense for my operation? And Lisa Gonzalez, our extension agent, and Craig Money, our regional agent as well, did a farm stand visit this week. And so these roadside stands are more popular. Folks are like, oh, again, this idea for fresh air buying. And so how can we support them? They did an analysis to how to support them in keeping their produce fresh. And so we're going to be able to supply a cool bot for them, helping with their cold chain. So we're really excited about this pivot that we did internally to fund aggregators. And for farmers, if farmers need funding to make their display case at the farmer's market more safe, so that they might have a closed display case, so that folks, we're advocating at farmers markets that consumers don't touch the produce and then, like, how we do, we pick it up, we smell it, we put it down. That's not best practice at all. And so, like we're seeing when you go to check out at a grocery store or whatever, we need some kind of barrier there. So so you point, and the farmer will hopefully is using gloves, and we'll put it in a bag for you. So we're supplying that type of material for farmers. And also, if farmers need coolers, they need to be able to transport, if they're doing this new tailgate thing, they need coolers. So we're really excited about that. And if you're interested, I will send you those links to those applications. And then we have a Shop Safe, Shop Local program that we're promoting on Instagram and Facebook, and through press releases, talking about how local food systems is an opportunity for you to feel confident around your food purchasing. So this is a way that we have, our project has pivoted to support COVID-19 sales, local regional farm sales. But so moving on to what we're doing on the day-to-day, no matter what, is we do have a wonderful relationship with the Center for Ag and Food Entrepreneurship, working with Michael and Smithson to help clients who do want to work with Blue Ridge Food Ventures and explore doing a value-added business. And so we have $3,000 in support per business for this consulting process. Michael and Smithson can help you figure out, where am I in this process? What are the next steps I need to do? And of course, they have significant resources there at Blue Ridge Food Ventures for processing. And that information was in the first 4 of this series that have been recorded. And Tiffany, I'm hoping, we will be promoting these as a resource that you can go back and watch at any time, but you can get a really good idea of the services of Blue Ridge Food Ventures. And Michael is our entry point into that process for, how can Blue Ridge Food Ventures support you and your dream of value-added production. We also have other grants and cost share and loans. So for grants right now, we have this COVID-19 support for aggregators, farmers, and farmers markets. We have an application process for that. We're already distributing materials to farmers markets and to farmers. So happy to talk to you more about that. Now's a good time for training. If you've identified an online training you would like to take and there's a tuition for that, and you make an application to us and you make the case that this is going to increase your farm income. I need some HACCP training. I need to go to the Acidified Food School at NC State. They have an online training. We're happy to cover that training cost for you. And we do have loans. We're working with Natural Capital Investment Fund, who is really, one of the things they'd like to focus on is this local food systems type work that we're doing. And so we have a 30% cost share for, really big projects to work with Natural Capital Investment Fund. So happy to talk to you all about that. And the entry point into the loan program is to work through your small business center. We're continuing to have a very close relationship with our small business centers and helping new businesses and expanding businesses come up with a business plan to figure out what type of investment do you need to grow. We have advanced support for businesses that are beyond this basic level. And so we have funding to support you as you're considering becoming an LLC. Do you need graphic design, web design, social media coaching? You enter our application portal, which I will show you, and we can help match you with consultants and services. But again, the first step is to work with your small business center. We're working with Tiffany Henry at Southwestern, Katie Gould at Haywood Community College, and Catherine Jenkins at Tri-County. So that's it. There is this apply here button. I don't know if that will take me to our website, but hope so. Yeah. So this mini application is on our homepage. And so I encourage you to check out Empowering Mountain Food Systems homepage to look at the different programs we have. We're here until April 2022, and really excited about some training programs that we're developing right now. But look forward to continuing the work with Blue Ridge Food Ventures and Smithson and Michael and Tiffany to help you get your value-added business off the ground. So with that, I am done. Tiffany, I don't know if there's any questions in the chat.
There is not any, but if you guys have any questions, please let us know. So the question is, apply where? That website, Laura, do you?
So if you go to the Empowering Mountain Food Systems, if you put that into your Google, I don't know if I have a minute to paste it in. If Lisa's still on, maybe she can paste it in. Paste it into the chat.
It's empoweringmountainfoodsystems.org, but mountain is MTN. Are they in Virginia? Products being made in food trucks.
Value added.
Value added. Some, yeah.
I'm going to
And
Virginia.
That's a really good question. I mean, there are some value-added products being made in food trucks. You want to be careful, obviously, if you're trying to make a prepackaged food product or a shelf-stable food product, anything like that. If you're selling it out of a food truck, you want to make sure that you're not trying to sell something that's under FDA inspection out of a county-inspected vehicle, because that could get you in a tricky situation. But if you are making something that is being a value-added product that's given directly to the end consumer, then yeah.
So the question also, the follow-up was, I'm in meat, so USDA inspection will be required. So this would be USDA inspection in a food truck. It's a bit of a stretch, but I will say that there may be some possibility of seeking state inspection rather than federal inspection for certain types of meat handling. So, these are questions that I would direct towards the Meat and Poultry Inspection Service of the North Carolina Department of Agriculture.
Yeah, we've been getting so many questions about that. Tiffany and I are talking about having a webinar just about small-scale meat processing. It's a moving target.
Yeah.
I know the North Carolina legislature had a bill. They've all gone home now, so I'm not sure what the update that is, Smithson. I don't know if you know about that, but there was a bill in the legislature to support the expansion of existing small-scale meat processors because the demand is so high. We're hearing that folks cannot get in until January.
Yeah. People are falling over themselves to get new meat plants built around here, and it's in my career, it's been the single most difficult thing I've seen to do. It's not like you turn on a light switch or you get $2 million from the General Assembly and build one. So it's a very complicated, drawn out, and expensive process. And I'm sorry you're not getting answers from the Meat and Poultry Inspection Service, Catherine, as you said. I would say NC Choices might be your next best bet, is to go to them and see if they can carry your question to the relevant authorities and get some answers for you.
Okay, well, I don't have any other questions. Anybody else have any other questions? So it looks like Catherine's talking to Jack Nails.
Nails, right. That's a good contact.
Good. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you again, Smithson, Michael, Laura, for making this series happen. And we are thankful for all of the people that took time out of their busy schedule to join us.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Where can folks find the recorded sessions that we've had thus far?
Well, we're gonna talk about that. I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna say it probably is gonna have to land on the Empowering Mountain website.
Great. Yeah, we'd love to have it, and we will be in touch with all of y'all through the SBCs on some follow-up and any way that we can support you, and really reach out to Michael, and we've got a nice line item to support y'all's work with them. So please do. So thank you all. It's been a great series, Smithson. Thanks for, like I said, pivot is the word of the day, and we did a good job here. So I appreciate you and Michael both.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Thanks.